Two rather extraordinary hearings yesterday and today on Capitol Hill. The first hearing was on the censorship industrial complex. The second was the fact that Americans are being forced to fund left-wing, unfair, and corrosive opinion media. The fact that Congress was discussing freedom of speech and freedom of association wasn't extraordinary. No, the incredible element of this was that those who claimed to be Americans, many of them in that Congress, had committed to stealing those rights from all of you. And they're willing to corruptly use your own money to do it. Real Americans don't steal other Americans' rights. That's my focus in today's preamble. Yesterday, the Senate Subcommittee on the Constitution held a hearing on collusion between big government, big tech, and the media to censor Americans' free speech. It was this unholy triumvirate that conspired to take away one of our most sacred rights, the right to speak our mind and demand a redress of grievances from our government. At this point, I should remind you that our government is too big. It spends too much of our great-great-grandkids' money and has grown beyond the consent of the governed. Thus, there are a lot of grievances against the apparatchiks who now dominate the federal Leviathan. One of the speakers detailing the abuses suffered at the hands of leftists was Molly Hemingway of The Federalist. Full disclosure, I am a fan of Molly and those who work at The Federalist. I think they have a lot to contribute to public discourse. Democrats disagree with me, of course. Hemingway detailed how these charlatans colluded to silence her.
Unfortunately, the right to free speech has been under worse attack in the last decade than at any other point in our nation's history. The tentacles of the censorship industrial complex are choking out freedom of expression, debate, and the right to criticize powerful institutions such as corporate media and the government. Federal and state governments fund and promote censorship and blacklisting technology. They direct big tech companies to censor American speech and debate. Academic institutions, such as Stanford and the University of Texas, are given large grants not to defend free speech, but to conduct research on so-called disinformation for use by the censorship regime.
All paid for with your tax dollars. Left-wingers who no longer wish to be Americans had the gall and the ability to misappropriate funds to attack American free speech in an effort to stop us from challenging, debating, or providing alternatives to their leftist orthodoxy. Not once did the Republican Party defund this clearly subversive and anti-American activity. Not once. The other hearing took place today. It was a hearing asking why the taxpayers must be forced to fund left-wing fake news outlets like NPR and PBS. We got a preview of this hearing when Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene visited this show yesterday. On this subject, let me be plain. I fully support the right of entities like MSNBS, CNN, PBS, and NPR to spew their leftist tripe and drivel. No real conservative wants to censor anybody's free speech. However, due to the freedom of association that is every American's right, I should not be forced to fund my political opponents, no more than they should be forced to give their money to me. As for this idea that NPR and PBS are news organizations, our pals at Newsbusters put that absurd claim to rest.
I don't think I have any Jesse Helms defenders here, Nina.
Not me. I think he ought to be worried about about what's going on in the good Lord's mind, because if there's retributive justice, he'll get AIDS from a transfusion, or one of his grandchildren will get it.
The man is on the court. You know, I hope his wife feeds him lots of eggs and butter, and he dies early like many black men do of heart disease.
The idea got into their minds that to kill other people is a great thing to do, and that they would be rewarded in the hereafter.
But Christians do that every single day in this country.
Do they blow people up?
Yes, Christians every day. People walk in the post office. I mean,
Fidel is now 61 years old, but his charisma remains as strong as ever. Fidel touched this young machine adjuster, and the man enjoyed a mild ecstasy. I know the feeling. He has inspired the majority with his charisma.
In 2010, there was a Tea Party rally at the Capitol. Did you have a sense from listening to that rally and the people there that they were as much interested in being anti-black as they were anti-Obamacare?
America is exceptionally religious, has always been exceptionally religious. compared to the rest of...
Founded by people who were seeking religious freedom.
Well, that's a charitable way of putting it. Founded also by a theocratic cult of religious nuts.
Right.
This week, 82 years ago, Kristallnacht happened, and in that tower of burning books, it led to an attack on fact, knowledge, history, and truth. After 4 years of a modern-day assault on those same values by Donald Trump, the Biden-Harris team pledges a return to norms, including the truth.
Over the course of his 8 years in office, Barack Obama violated the Constitution multiple times. He suffered no consequence for the harm he did to our people. For nearly 2 decades, the American left has been using our money to steal basic constitutional rights, and they've suffered no punishment for that. And for decades, conservatives, Republicans, and independents have been forced to fund cancerous kook leftist propaganda that you just saw, that the very apparatchiks who attacked our right of free speech called news. It must end. Americans, real Americans, can literally and figuratively no longer afford Democrats. It's time they were stopped from doing harm and severely punished for brazenly doing that harm in the first place. If Republicans are not up to this task, they should resign and allow other Americans to do the job they will not do. Our people have earned this justice. You know, folks, I thank God for my wonderful wife, my kids, my country, the greatest nation ever. And Americans like you who believe in the truth, the Chris Salcedo Show will never stop fighting for you.
The Chris Salcedo Show, for the news you need to know.